This is what pure love is right here.
Oh my god, it's so good.
Welcome back to another episode of Legit versus Budget. This is a series where we take amazing food from around the world, show you how to make more of a traditional version, and then I also offer up some tips on saving money on budget or if you don't have access to ingredients and swaps and equipment and things like that. Today we are exploring something I'm very excited about, which is Ethiopian food, one of my favorite foods around the world, something we have not ever made on this channel, so I'm really pumped to share it with you guys. Also, we partnered up with GT's Kombucha, so I'm going to be using kombucha, this amazing fermented tea, in a couple of the recipes, but we're going to get into that as the video goes on. So you might be wondering, why Ethiopian food? Well, first off, I love the food and I've never cooked it on this channel. But secondly, early on when I moved to New York City, I was an artist, I was struggling trying to make it as a musician, and I had very little money. But I also realized that even though I didn't have much, there are so many people out there that have far, far, far less than I did. So I ended up sponsoring a child for many years from Ethiopia. So wanting to learn more about the culture, I of course wanted to learn about the food, because to me, the heart of any culture involves the food in a very big way. So I tried some traditional Ethiopian food and was blown away. First off, the flavors were amazing, but the eating experience itself is what's truly incredible about this food. So Injera is the staple of Ethiopian food, and it's a grain, the smallest grain in the world. It's like a super ancient grain, one of the super ancient grains, and they grind it up and they ferment a batter with water and Injera for many days, and then they make this really fluffy, delicious bread, and it's like sour because of the fermentation. So in Ethiopia, they don't really use utensils, and the plate is made of Injera, so you get this huge platter oftentimes of Injera, and all the food is put on the Injera. There's Injera served on the side, and then you have all these wats and different little like salads and stews and things that have a gigantic range of flavors. And then what you do is you rip off some of the Injera, you dip it into whatever you want, and you grab it and you eat it with your hands. And this is one of the first eating experiences I ever had with my hands, and what I really love about it is you feel so connected to the food. When you have a spoon or a fork, it's kind of like a middleman, and it can affect the flavor, and it can affect you're not knowing the temperature, so you're grabbing something, and just having the Injera to grab it and really feel it first, it just creates this more intimate experience while you're actually eating. Today I'm going to show you guys a couple classic dishes from Ethiopia, as well as how to make Injera and also their special seasoning blend. Now typically on this show I offer up a budget and more hacked version, but what I find with Ethiopian food is it's actually very accessible and it's pretty affordable, so I don't necessarily have to worry so much about the budget, but I will offer you guys some tips and just to make things more accessible for you in your life. Let's talk about Teff, baby. Let's talk about you and me. The most important ingredient in Ethiopian food is this stuff, and this is Teff flour, and Teff is an ancient grain. I think it's the world's smallest grain, superfood, whatever you want to call it, but they grind it up into a flour and then they mix it with water and they ferment it for like 3 or 4 days, even longer sometimes. They turn it into this gigantic fermented, almost like pancake, and that is the staple of almost every single dish. So what I actually thought would be fun for the Injera is to mix it with mostly water, but add a little bit of GT's original kombucha. And what's cool about kombucha is it's already a fermented thing, so it's gonna speed up the fermentation process. You can do this to make sourdough bread starters. Just by adding a little bit of GT's into the batter, I can cut my fermentation time probably in half. I take about 4 cups of Teff and start mixing in water, and you want it to be kind of like a thick, sort of doughy consistency, and I'm gonna add a little bit of kombucha to that, mix it around, loosely cover it, and then just let it sit for a few days, and you'll smell it every day. It'll just be more and more sour. This is what a 2-day kombucha fermented Teff looks like. See how bubbly it is? I mean, it's freaking alive. So I've had this fermenting for a few days. As you can see, it's really bubbly now. It's picked up the natural yeast in the air. The kombucha has helped it ferment a bit. And also, you'll notice there's kind of like a liquid on here. So if you have a lot of liquid, sometimes that will happen depending on how long you ferment it. You can just pour that off, but this thing is alive and this is ready to go. So even though Injera is pretty much 100% Teff flour, and sometimes they might use like 5% barley to kind of help it stick together, and a lot of restaurants, to save on cost, they'll actually use just regular flour. So if you do want to cut back on costs and you're feeling like Teff is a bit expensive, just mix it with flour. So what I'm gonna do now is I have some water boiling. I'm gonna take a little bit of the Injera. This is the fermented version with the kombucha in it. And I'm going to pour some in there, about half a cup. And what I want to do is I'm actually like cooking just a little bit of the injera and kind of thickening it up. And this is going to help with the chew, I believe. And then mix it back into the original injera. Whoa! And then once we have it like this, then I'm just going to slowly pour that in and kind of mix it around. Not all at once. Make sure it gets together. So now we have the injera. I'm going to add a little salt in there. And it doesn't need to be super salty because a lot of the ingredients have a lot of flavor. This is really just the sourness, the consistency of the bread. And I'm gonna use I'm gonna actually add water. Right now it's kind of at a pancake batter and I wanna get it kind of in between pancake and crepe. So I'm gonna add some water. Fine out.
Could do it with
Terms. Fine out.
Could do it with
Terms. So you basically pour it through, and they're much better than I am at this, but doing it kind of circular. And what you want to do is you want to let this sort of bubble up. And once the bubbles kind of cook through like a pancake, you're going to pop a lid on it. You do not flip this over. Pop a lid on it, let it steam a little bit. What's fascinating to me about injera is that like, it's one of those things that seems like it would be easy, but I've been making this for a long time and I've never gotten it quite right. It's always changing. I'm learning a lot about it. It's very delicate. So see all those bubbles? This is actually the most beautiful one that I've ever made. So I'm feeling good because this could have been horrific. And it's not done yet. It can still fall apart. Pop the lid on. Okay. Just like that, you can see it's nice and cooked on top. And now, here's the scary part. You never be scared when you're cooking, but if there is a scary part, it's basically trying to take this big plate, slide it, oh yes, it worked. If you're not someone that knows much about kombucha, I just want to give you a quick little rundown. So Mike's done some videos on how to make kombucha. I love making kombucha myself. It's really simple to make, it's really delicious. What I love about GT's kombucha is even though they've grown tremendously and you probably see them in most stores, they're still a family-run business and they make all their kombucha in small batches. They don't force carbonate. So when you open it up and you see the bubbles, they're tiny little bubbles, which means there's really good effervescence going on in there. And what's really cool about GT's is they have so many incredible flavors. Like the Mystic Mango, I freaking love because I love mango and it's a great way to get that mango feeling, especially when mangoes are not in season or I'm not in like Costa Rica. So one of the key ingredients to Ethiopian food is this stuff. And in India, they have garam masala, and in Ethiopia, they have berbere. And berbere is this amazing spice blend of a ton of different things. I'm gonna show you guys how to make it from scratch right now. You can of course buy, a packaged version that's gonna be simpler and cheaper in the short term, but in the long run, if you buy all the spices, you can make whatever you want. You choose. So I have this spice blend for the berbere, and every spice blend is slightly different. So use what you got. There's a lot of ingredients, but I have black pepper, cumin, cinnamon, and coriander that I'm gonna toast and grind up. And I already have these guys grinded. You could of course have them whole or grind them yourself. Ginger, turmeric, hot pepper, and I'm using cayenne, some cardamom that's ground up, fenugreek, allspice, nutmeg, salt, and paprika. I'm using smoked, but you can use regular as well. If you want to learn more about why I love food and how food has helped transform my entire life, click below. I have a great podcast where I talk about different things in life and inspiration and all this stuff, but also about my connection to food and how it has helped elevate my life in such an amazing way. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna make some wots. And wots are basically like stews. So they might use some of these, they might have some fresh ingredients. It all depends. I'm gonna show you guys some different variations. I'm gonna serve them with the injera. It's gonna be amazing. You're gonna be in heaven. One of the things that makes Ethiopian food so budget friendly is they use a lot of dried ingredients. So yes, spices are abundant there, and depending on where you live, spices can be a bit more expensive, but dried ingredients in general are typically pretty dang cheap. They also last a long time and they will feed a lot of people. So this dish is called Misir Wot, and like I said, wots are these sort of stews. I'm using red lentils. These lentils cook a lot faster than the brown ones. I'm gonna saute some onions, garlic, mix that with tomato paste. The berbere seasoning will go in there and it's gonna get dark, and this is gonna be a bit more spicy and hearty and delicious. Okay, so I'm gonna first put in some oil, saute the onions and garlic. Onions first. Onions first, onions first. And a lot of times in Ethiopia, they'll like dice the freaking crap out of their onions. So you can, of course, if you have more time than I do, you can do a really fine dice, but I'm okay with a little bit of a chunky onion experience. This is like the world's worst dice. I mean, come on, are you kidding me? So what I'm just gonna do now is just add some tomato paste. And this is gonna be nice, rich, and deep and juicy. And a good amount. This one's gonna be a spicier dish. So I'm just toasting this down right now to make it like a deep red color. And just a little bit. You obviously don't want to burn it, so be careful. I turn the heat off a little bit because I'm like, oh, it's starting to smoke. I still burn stuff to this day. But if you're mindful and you're present with your food, you're smelling and you're aware, you'll rarely burn anything. That looks beautiful. I'm gonna go in with my lentils. Kind of eyeballing it. It's all about like the water ratio, and I can always add more water. Alright, so as this cooks down, we're gonna bring it to a boil. And if you need to add a little bit more water, you can, but just give it a smell. It smells almost like a pizza, like a heavily spiced pizza. And what I'm trying to do here is just get these nice and tender and cook this down to almost like a really thick sauce. You don't want it to be too watery. But if I need to add some water as they cook, that's totally cool. So I like to salt a little bit at the beginning and then mostly towards the end. I'm just gonna give a little taste now just to get a sense of the broth. Oh wow. Woo! So that's already spicy, like perfect spice. As it cooks down, it's gonna get even spicier. And this is going to be the spiciest dish that we're making. So you want this one nice and spicy. It's almost like the hot sauce stew. So for this dish, it's called Kik Alicha, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but it's a split yellow pea dish. And use yellow peas, of course, onions, ginger, fresh turmeric, and fresh ginger. If you do not have those, you can of course use powder, totally cool. But I have ginger kombucha, so I'm gonna add a little extra ginger just to kind of add a kick to it. There's also a great turmeric kombucha that GT's makes. So if you don't have turmeric, that's kind of a cool hack. If you can't find fresh turmeric and you can't find ground turmeric, you can get kombucha with turmeric in it. Get your pan nice and hot. Saute down some onions. Add some salt in here, just a little bit. So I sauteed the onions down, threw in a little bit of garlic, grated some ginger and turmeric, but just to add a little extra ginger flavor. A little bit of the GT's kombucha. Just a splash will do ya. Bring this to a boil and then just kind of simmer it for a while, and the peas are gonna cook, they're gonna get soft, they're gonna get tender. All right, this thing is up to a boil. Now, the split peas are gonna take a lot of water, so you wanna make sure if you're losing water and they're still not cooked, that you're absolutely adding water. But what I'll do is I'll cook this for like 20 minutes and I'll start to taste them and kind of get a sense of the consistency. So you're gonna make a braised collard dish called Gomen. And if you don't have collards, a cool trick is just to get some frozen spinach, really affordable and cheap. Some onions, I'm gonna grate in some ginger and garlic. A little bit of that Berbere, and then since there is ginger, I'm gonna add a little bit more kombucha. That will also help with the braising. And we're gonna braise it for a while with some water, and it's gonna be freaking delicious. And then I'll even add some of the, not as much Berbere, but just a little bit. And you'll see this in some recipes, and some they'll just completely avoid it. So it's up to you, but I think it adds such a unique flavor. Goes in. You know, a little bit of salt, just to start. Ooh, a lot of braising. So I'm just gonna give this a little taste. Okay, tastes good, salty, get a little bit of the spice. Boiling now, bring it down to a simmer, and then just sort of let that braise. So this is a dish called Shiro Wat, and it's actually a chickpea flour stew. So we're gonna be using some chickpea flour. But first, saute down some onions. Seems like every one starts this way, onions and garlic. I just want to cook this on kind of a medium low and just sweat the onions out a little bit. So I'm just gonna add some chickpea flour, maybe like half a cup to start. Mix that together, and this is actually gonna, because it's very starchy, it's gonna come together, make it into the sauce. So I'm gonna make the Atkilt Wat, and sometimes I'll do potatoes in this, but it's basically onions, carrots, and cabbage, and turmeric. It's gonna be a little fresher, not have as much spice to it. I'm gonna grate in some turmeric just to give it a little color. Actually, then we're just gonna cook this down a little bit.
You just smell your way home. No,
making it, I'm like, yeah, okay.
I didn't even use GPS, frankly. I just
Smell PS.
Why don't you sit and I'll shoot you? You guys sit and grab some bites.
Well, you can have it too, you know, it's gluten-free.
Oh, it's
Gluten-free and vegan.
Okay.
Yeah, rip a little piece off and then you kind of just grab what you'd like, and you can start with one thing or you can mix it.
let's start over here.
Yeah, that's the
Oh, yeah,
Shiro Wat. That's the chickpea.
I want to be able to say it before I put it in my mouth.
Shiro Wat.
Shiro Wat.
Shiro Wat.
Sure, thank you. That one of my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Sit.
And just with the
Good girl, good Injera. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. I hope you really enjoyed it. Ethiopian food is becoming one of my favorite cuisines in the entire world. I think that the communal element of it, the fact that most of the food is vegetarian and it's super simple, but also complex in flavor and deliciousness. It's hearty. Everyone gets to eat together. You get to have something new. There's no utensils, so there's in a way less cleanup, even though I had 1,000 dishes because I made a bunch for you guys. Oh, damn it. Getting to eat with your hands, being more connected to the food. I hope you learned something, whether you make this food or whether you just kind of bring in the inspiration into your own life. There's so much to learn from Ethiopian cuisine. Again, a shout out. Thank you so much GT's Kombucha for sponsoring this video. So I will see you all soon and keep watching. So much more to come. Josh here. Peace out. Yeah, I'm just dancing with the Injera. I'll be right there. It's hot!